Stands out to me in watching his patterns is the arm speed. And we've talked a lot about how arm speed doesn't necessarily come from the arm itself. That's just one of the variables that contributes to arm speed. But actually the main variable that contributes to arm speed is how well do you use your lower half, how well do you use your body. Because you can't get your arm to move this lightning fast just from accelerating from the scapula to the fingertips. So arm speed isn't just coming from the pec contracting out and around into ball release, right? That acceleration phase is certainly augmented and aided by this active pulling into release from the pec fibers, from the lat, from the subscap, from all the internal rotators of the shoulder. But you're not going to get this type of lightning quick arm speed if you're not getting that contribution from the lower half. And so that's the biggest distinction. Whenever I see someone with lightning quick arm speed, that's a telltale sign they're using the lower half effectively. And when you see someone with a very slow arm, like you watch them from a side view and you can almost like see their arm at each step. Like you can almost watch their arm through space versus it just being this complete blur. That's an indication that the arm is taking over the throw. So just off the bat, you can tell that he's getting a lot of that energy up the chain from the ground as a result of that arm speed. So arm speed doesn't come from the arm speed comes from the proper sequencing and transfer of energy through the entire kinetic chain. Another thing that's interesting, if you've followed our stuff for a while, we're big on how a lot of our throwers have a fairly aggressive forward move, fairly aggressive drift, right? You can compare and contrast Yordan Ventura's first move with Jacob deGrom, and Ventura really comes to that traditional like kind of balance point position here. He's not shifting his weight forward 4, 6, 8 inches like a Jacob deGrom during leg lift, and so he's actually way less like front side drift and way less drift weight shift sideways. So again, we can see where's the belt buckle face, and then you add at the very last second the active pull from the arm itself, and those two combined is what gives you this elite arm speed, along with this lead leg effectively blocking, so that you have something to kind of pull into and decelerate with. An indication he's holding even right up until landing. He's completely sideways, completely closed, and if someone had just told me stay sideways, that would have massively helped me instead of having to figure that out like or compress the spring, which is what he's done. He's wound up this tension. Really, the throws effectively already happened by this point, so there's really not much active lead foot hits that sends the impulse up through this leg, up through that glove side. A lot of people would say that the recoil is just the Latin players kind of showing off. It's just flair. There's no point to it. What that's a sign of is, if you can think about effectively, you can see better from the back view. The arm extends out and around into elbow extension. So that's another kind of key piece of the kinematic sequence. And then you have the shoulder internally rotating. And that's the going from peak layback to internal rotation into ball release. So you have kind of those four, really the big four pieces that they should have been on turf mounds, because they are wearing poor footwear on a wood floor. Would you throw as hard? Obviously not. Why? Because you don't have that fixed point to the ground. Your foot's going to be slipping all over. So how can you shoot down is this back foot? So if this isn't stable, then you can't. And this is where there's, as far as I can tell, two distinct categories, and some pitchers will right here. And so that's one category. The other category is that guys pivot up and around on that big toe. And so him having hip IR to hold like Chase Petty or Diego Castillo, like these are guys that are able to stay into their backside for specifically prove that 1 or 2 or 3 miles an hour is coming for that from that. But just an important note, despite that, even restriction through that ankle joint as well. Otherwise, you really can't get much better than this. Glove arm, throwing arm work in opposition. He's very well timed with that intensity. He's finishing with electricity, finishing with intensity, and rotating in plane. As far as just really a fun pitch to watch, and just in conclusion, like definitely a shame, what happened, and while he wasn't ever an all-star, he was certainly on his way to becoming an all-star. I think he was on the cusp of really doing something special. He had the base for what could have developed into a really elite arsenal. And again, having effective movement patterns is really that kind of first piece of the foundation. Having a great fastball, good profile on his fastball, good movement profile on his fastball was a great foundation. He had a curveball with a ton of promise. Really a shame, and Hopefully you guys enjoyed that breakdown. These are the best